Hey guys, how's it going? HaloTheorist here back, coming at you guys with my second podcast. Today I'm here with my good friend Noah. Please say hi, Noah.
Hello, everybody.
Today we're going to be talking about Dr. Cathrine Elizabeth Halsey, the creator of the Spartan 2s, her history, her background, maybe some things about her in the present, what we've seen in the newer Halo games, and some things maybe about what she might do for us in the future and what her plans might be, and maybe how her relation to the Forerunners and with Cortana, how she might be able to fix her. Today, I kind of want to start off by doing a little bit of history. Dr. Cathrine Halsey was born. Let me see if I can find this here. I got to go pull up my notes. Was born on the planet of Endymions, is what it's called, on March 19th, 2492. She was very early on, recruited into Oni in 2508 due to her first doctoral of where she was discussing with another scientist on a dimensional variant. Originally, the variant that they believed that there was 7 dimensions, and Dr. Halsey, being an individual with an IQ of over 200, believed that she could run a 16-dimensional variant with this experiment that she was committing on the outer colonies and the rebellions that were beginning there. And the rebellions, who that we now know as the insurrectionists, were rebelling against the United Earth government, which is the UNSC that we know now. However, the UNSC is the militarized version of this due to the necessity of the Human Covenant War and the invasion. So, beginning with that, she very early on acquires 2 doctorals, becomes recruited into Oni, which we know is a very secretive and lucrative, Section 3 is what she's a part of, group, and makes some very questionable, let's say, moral decisions throughout the Human Covenant War and to that. The most prominent of which is the Spartan program. The Spartan program that we know, with in the most iconic gaming character that I can think of, Master Chief, is actually the Orion 2 or Spartan 2 program, meaning that there was clearly a Spartan 1 program. If you were to look in Dr. Halsey's journal at some of the notes that she has with the Halo Reach Legendary Edition, there's a book that's included, which again is Dr. Halsey's notes with her journal throughout the years. And some of the things that you can see are the early prototypes of the Mjolnir armor for the Spartan 1s and some of these Spartan 1 augmentations and changes that they had done. One of the characters, just for example, that is a Spartan 1 is actually Sergeant Johnson from Halo 1, 2, and 3. While not brought to the surface within the games through the extended lore, he's also made to be known that he is one, i.e. possibly his relation so close with Chief. But going back to Halsey, there is also in the book a depiction of the prototype armor that we see in the Halo Legends shortcut film, titled, labeled Prototype, where that armor was actually a very early version of an exoskeleton that possibly would have been used for the Orion project, which again is the Spartan project. And eventually the successor to this became the Mjolnir armor, which is given to the Spartan 2s. Again, very early on, right, kind of going back on what I was saying before, the Spartans that she created were to actually defend against human rebellion. The reason why it's taken into very, questionable moral standards is because the Covenant invaded and just happened to give Halsey some sort of cover up that she could ride on, being the savior of humanity with the creation of the Spartans due to their high morale boost that they were giving to the UNSC soldiers, as well as pretty much anyone left in the human colonies. But that's just a quick background information on some of the things about her today. Myself and Noah are kind of going to go back and forth and talk about some of the things during the Spartan program, maybe some of the things during Halo 4 and 5, and possibly what she could do in the future. So, Noah, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm just going to ask you to start off here. Do you think that Dr. Halsey and what she was doing with the Spartan program was, in a moral sense, justified later by defending, by having the Spartans defend and, keep humanity afloat during the years of the Human Covenant War? And feel free to elaborate on some of the things that she's done in that time.
Right, and so that's one of the things that makes Halsey so interesting is the fact that she's so morally gray. Some people agree with her decisions, some people think they're wrong. And I think she got really lucky in the sense that the Covenant came because otherwise, I'm not sure people would have backed her and those decisions to create this Spartan program if it had turned out that the only real threat was the insurrectionist. Taking because with the whole Spartan program, you had the abduction of children and all that sort of things, and
Mm.
actually the creation of the clone children too that would go and replace
Yeah, the Flash clones. Yeah.
the abducted
Yeah.
people and then just die basically. That's one of the things that Halo Legends did a good job of covering, seeing a Spartan discover their clone, and
Yeah,
it's
Spartan
yeah.
023
Hmm.
Daisy. She saw that along with Ralph, who ended up not becoming one. So yeah,
Right.
please feel free to keep going. But just those, you're right. Yeah, those are things that were brought out that I felt were very accurate portrayals of what we've read in the extended lore in the books and things like that.
Right, and a lot of Halsey in general is just confined to that extended lore, but things like Halo Legends give you a really good look into Halsey and the things that she's done. And another thing is Halo Reach gives you that good look into George and Halsey's relationship with George calling her mum and all that sort of thing. It gives you this sense that the Spartans really respected her regardless of their upbringing and regardless
Hmm.
of their training. So it's really difficult to make a judgment call on Halsey because of the various things she's done and the
No,
results
yeah.
that she's gotten.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I mean, one of the like famous quotes of Dr. Halsey was that, for a long time, she says, I thought we had to sacrifice a few for the good of the entire human race. And she goes on to say, I've killed and maimed and caused a great deal of suffering to many people, all in the name of self-preservation. But now I'm not sure that philosophy has worked out too well. I should have been trying to save every single human life, no matter the cost. And from there, again, like we can see the moral gray area that Halsey kind of represents between Oni and the survival of the human race, even for herself, for someone who's so sure with an IQ, way beyond one that we can accurately represent ourselves, it thinks. Even her position on it is kind of changed, and like you were saying with the Spartan 2 program, who I guess else to come up with the idea of creating flash clones that were supposed to die off within a few years, at the latest, to be able to kidnap kids and to take that kind of almost twisted mentality that kids are more adaptable to the crazy augmentations and other things that the Spartans were going to have to go through. And even in the Fall of Reach, if you watch the animated short as well as the book, she is very questionable when she's talking with Deja, the AI that helped with the Spartan program, if it's okay. I mean, she's given multiple warnings that a lot, they don't believe that most of the specimens will survive. Not half, maybe a third. That ends up becoming true with 33 out of the 75 making it through the genetic augmentations. But still, even her question about it is, at certain points in the Halo universe, it kind of it blurs the line. And what I'd like to go into really quick for a lot of the people who don't know, the Cortana. If you've ever seen kind of Chief's interaction with Cortana, you would somewhat understand in some of the lines in like Halo CE where, upon leaving the Pillar of Autumn in the lifeboat with Chief, she says, "If I still had fingers, they'd be crossed," which kind of implies that Cortana is alive. But in actuality, Cortana is a what she is a AI, and in the Halo universe, AIs are taken from recently deceased individuals and turned into their brain is then turned into these AI, and so that implies that in order for an AI to exist, someone had to die. But in the case of Cortana, Dr. Halsey actually used the living tissue in order to make her from her own. But what she kind of neglects to mention, and in Halo 4, when that line is given, and what I actually did a theory sort of video on, shameless plug, about with how what maybe Cortana would have to have done to her, what Halsey would do, and that Cortana honestly believes that Halsey could easily make another one of her. If you look back, Dr. Halsey actually went against strict UNSC code and against some ONI regulations to make multiple flash clones of herself in order to make Cortana, which also in an essence, I mean, she in that point of time was also questioning again the moral gray area that Halsey represents so well, in that she didn't even tell these clones that they were versions of her, and clearly in the end they died and were they were used as a, I guess I don't know how to describe it, a base for Cortana, and that Cortana, while she admires Cortana and has very, very good feeling with her, and is very happy with what she's made, she also mentions that by combining the Spartans and Cortana, i.e., giving Cortana to Chief in order to, accurately complete Operation Red Flag, which in short was a latch ditch effort to capture a Covenant hierarch, which is kind of explained in Halo Reach, or the Fall of Reach, sorry, the book. She didn't really feel that it was a beneficial thing. She felt she was kind of like losing bolts somehow, and that's how bad the war was. So, kind of moving on from there, I would like to kind of ask you, how do you feel about Dr. Halsey, and maybe her absence in maybe Halo 1, 2, and 3? I understand that Bungie kind of wasn't going for, an accurate, no to say representation, but for a surface view of Dr. Halsey. They were a little bit more focused on the universe as a whole, and how it's different than in Halo 4 and 5. As you know, Spartan Ops, Dr. Halsey is kind of brought to light and brought up to the surface, as well as in Halo 5, and maybe what that could mean for what's currently going on, especially with the storyline of Halo 5 and what Cortana's doing.
Right, that's an interesting thing to consider because at the end of the day, I don't think Bungie really had all of the extended lore planned out at the time. Going through 1 through 3, that was Chief's story at the end of the day. So the focus was there with Chief and Cortana going through this journey to save humanity. But now that we've sort of explored Chief and we have more openings with 4 and 5, we've started seeing Dr. Halsey become more prominent. She's featured in cutscenes. She has different dialogues with the characters. And now I really think that with the rising threat of Cortana after Halo 5, Dr. Halsey might play an even bigger role in creating this sort of technology that could handle Cortana, because the world has changed with AI and all that technology being able to be controlled by Cortana. You can't really trust that, so you need new technology, and I think Dr. Halsey is the only one that's really capable of creating that sort of stuff.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it literally is a battle against yourself, and maybe even more so yourself in your prime. It's almost sort of like an experience over talent type issue going on there, where Cortana, like you're saying, has the ability. You're not able to use AI. You're not able to, confront and, attack Cortana on the level that you normally would by a technological superiority. And so Dr. Halsey and her necessity is just going to become that much more in the future games. And currently with where she's at right now, I mean, she was at one point, I guess an enemy of the UNSC. I mean, at the end of Spartan Ops, you are part of it. Part of a team that is kind of hired as a hitman to kill her. Spartan Palmer tries to kill her, and so by Halo 5 immediately coming back and giving away her position and whatnot, it just seems kind of like, yeah, there's a lot more to Halsey even that we might not know now, and I feel that she has had a long path of reconciliation, not just with Cortana, but with Chief as well, and needing to kind of own up to what she has done and say it. I mean, like I said, some of the dialogue, it was kind of very different than what you're used to in Halo. The Spartan Ops dialogue between Spartan Thorn and Dr. Halsey, there's definitely some tricks that Dr. Halsey has up her sleeve. I mean, she knew, even for Roland, the AI for the Infinity, knew how to disable him for a short period of time. So, like you said, she definitely could have some tricks up her sleeve to deal with Cortana. We see in the Halo Infinite trailer the weapon containment system. And again, another shameless plug to that video I just was talking about. I talk about whether or not that is a housing chip to house her once she's found, or maybe that, as I was saying before, and even in this podcast, that chip, it was for another Cortana. As we know, the serial number is just one number off. And from a cutscene that we've seen in Halo 4 at the end of Composer, we see that even Cortana herself was afraid that Dr. Halsey would make another Cortana model and she would be replaced for Chief. So do you, I guess then, as an opinion at this point, looking kind of forward to the future, believe that it is possible, or that Dr. Halsey would do that, or do you think that maybe she would be trying to you kind of dial back and do the best that she can, sort of, I should be doing more to save every life, not just preserve, the humanity as a whole, and make choices based on what I think of more or less the needs of the few don't outweigh the needs of the many.
I feel like your theory definitely holds some weight because I feel like Halsey's the type that would cover her bases and have extra copies of Cortana, all that prepared just in case. But at the same time, I feel like her realizations that her actions might not have been the best might change her actions going forward. But at the same time, she still would probably have those copies available. I don't think she's the type that would be so quick to destroy her work so quickly.
No, yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see going forward how she creates these new technologies and
No,
whether she uses
I
what
definitely
she's
agree. And
created before.
what I kind of want to go into there as well is that Dr. Halsey and the librarian. I don't know if you've kept up with too much of like the super extended Halo lore, but in one of the scenes in Halo 4, the librarian kind of lets Chief know that she's hid seeds that would lead to eventualities for certain people and I guess characteristics to come up. And if you read some of the Forerunner trilogy in the books, you learn that Guilty Spark is actually an essence, so to speak, of a old human named Chakas, and the Isodidact, which is a clone of the original Didact, his essence, I think his name is Born Stellar Eternal Lasting, is believed to be implanted into Chief. But if you also kind of start looking at other characters in the Halo universe, it seems like Dr. Halsey seems to be the essence of the librarian. So much so that when you reach the Janus key, again going back to Spartan Ops, and the absolute record, and kind of the Halo escalation whatnot, they legitimately, the Forerunners legitimately believe that like Dr. Halsey is worthy of everything that at least what the Forerunner AI that she ran into during the escalation comics was ready to hand over literally all of the record, all the system's records and installations and everything. So much so that what we as humans wouldn't necessarily agree with the answer that she was given, but the AI that she spoke to with the absolute record believed that she was. And so, if Dr. Halsey was then, I guess, given the chance to do that, and I mean, all of that happens before Halo 5 with Cortana, the ability to, I guess, take control of the entire universe, because as we know, Cortana is pretty much, again, an essence of Dr. Halsey, at least in the current timeline that we're in, after the firing of the Halo rings. Do you think that it's now Dr. Halsey's job, similar to a librarian, to kind of take control over all the species in the universe? Do you think that there's any sort of personality or traits there that somewhat overlap together?
Possibly, well, at the end of the day, the whole mantle of responsibility thing was given to humanity, and
Mm-hmm.
since Halsey is human, there's that responsibility there for that. And I
Mm-hmm.
definitely think the Forerunners are going to play an important role going forward into Halo Infinite, because we still haven't seen, like you were saying, the rest of the essences and all that the AI could possibly give to any sort of other character. So it's going to be interesting to see what Halsey does with all of that, if that's
Mm-hmm.
addressed. So we'll
Yeah,
see how
and
that goes
rolling
forward.
into a little bit more, I guess, like of the background of Halsey, and maybe giving some explanation for some of the stuff that she's done, and kind of giving to reason for her reputation. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Halsey actually was in a relationship with Jacob Keyes, or Captain Keyes, from Halo CE. And I sometimes we question the morality of Dr. Halsey, and even kind of herself. She doesn't distinguish herself as very human, and I find it funny that you say that. Dr. Halsey is human. Um, it really seems like Cortana sometimes, and at least her relation to Chief, is not human. She's not born. She's created, but acts more human than Chief. Almost similar to how Dr. Halsey doesn't act as human sometimes as you feel like a human should be. Her lack of empathy really seems like it just takes away from her humanity, so much so that even when Miranda Keyes, who, if you, I guess, are putting this together now, if it's your first time hearing this, is Captain Keyes and Dr. Halsey's daughter. she almost completely neglects her for most of her life. I mean, you never actually see a real like relationship obviously between them, but definitely not in the games, and very very little things in the extended lore. So as a human, then I guess one of the final questions that I'll come up and ask you before we decide to wrap too much of this up, what do you feel like then Dr. Halsey is as a human? Do you feel like she really is, as she said at the beginning of Halo 4, what she wants is the next step for humanity to create the Spartans, to make them super, not necessarily super soldiers, but just to make them bigger, to make them stronger, to make them evolutionize? Because as we can clearly see with what the librarian gave Chief with the Gene Song and his evolution, there is more that is there for humanity, but it almost seems like it's at a cost of losing the empathy of humanity in order to get it. I guess if that's so, yeah, if that somewhat makes sense. So do you feel that she's adequate? Do you feel like she's, because she acts as a mother to the Spartans. She knows all the Spartans. It's mentioned multiple times in the books that she knows which Spartans are actually KIA and which Spartans are actually MIA, and is able to recognize Kurt from the Ghosts of Onyx, who is actually a member of Blue Team, for those of you who don't know, but gets lost and becomes the head trainee, or I guess the head officer for the training of the Spartan Threes. When she meets him, she actually knows who he is instantly. She's able to just process and eliminate. So she is like a mother, and as you related with George, like that. So she has almost mother instincts, but her coldness kind of, again, with the lack of empathy and humanity, kind of pulls away from that. So what do you think is then, I would say, the end all be all for Dr. Halsey? And if she is given the ability to sort of run the universe like Cortana has, what will she do? And is it a change? Has her mentality and her philosophy changed from when she started the Spartan Project to now?
That'll be something that'll be interesting to see going forward, because we do know that, Halsey's very cold, she's very calculated, but at the end of the day, we know that she wants what's best for humanity. But the problem is whether people agree with those methods or not. That's always something that's complicated and difficult to discuss, because it's a judgment call for everybody. But at the end of the day, Halsey has shown that she's capable of doing great things that can go and change things for the better. Without the Spartans, we wouldn't have humanity going forward. And then at the end of the day as well, Cortana is part of Halsey, and we've seen Cortana grow and develop more emotions and become more human despite being an AI. And that's another thing that's interesting to think about, is throughout Chief's journey, you've also seen the same sort of development from being more than a machine. Thinking about the cutscene at the end of Halo 4 with Lasky and Chief, one of the more defining moments in Chief's character journey. You see that whole discussion of, you're more than a machine, you're a man underneath all of this. And so that's something that's interesting to consider, whether we'll see that same sort of development with Halsey and her techniques, to where she realizes that she needs to create not tools but ways to enhance humanity while keeping that human aspect of everything together.
Yeah, no, and
So
like I
that's
said, I
something to
agree.
think
The
about.
disassociation with her calls, and the judgment she makes due to her being such, I guess, so much smarter than the average individual and human being, along with the, I guess, access that she's been given with Oni and things like that. It makes it hard. I'm also very much looking forward to seeing it, how she turns out in Halo Infinite. Hopefully, maybe there will be some other extended lore that she's included in prior to Halo Infinite's release. Maybe we'll get another teaser trailer that has something to do with it. As you know, for anyone who's watched maybe some of the analysis videos of the Halo Infinite trailers, you can see that Halsey has clearly been busy during the time between Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. I mean, there's a whole new version of Mark 6 Mjolnir armor. It's the Gen 3 armor has been made. And so, she's clearly doing something to help benefit against what's going on in Halo 5. Takes a huge, I would almost say, pride hit, and acknowledges the severity of the situation with Cortana at the wheel of the universe, I guess, so to speak. Holding all that kind of forerunner technology. She knows herself, and I mean, I don't know what would be worse, knowing how you yourself would destroy the galaxy, or kind of imprison the galaxy. So, yeah, I think that'll pretty much be it, man. I really enjoyed having you. It was awesome, an absolutely great discussion. I look forward to probably having you on some future podcasts if you would be so happy as you be willing
Yeah,
to join.
sure.
I would love to see you, man.
Yeah, thanks. It was good. I really enjoyed what we talked about.
All right, sounds great, man. I thank you guys for listening. Just remember that I do custom game nights from 9 to 12 during the week. Feel free to check my Instagram or message me on there for the dates, and I will see you guys next time.